The November 29th, 2016 meeting of the Transportation Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Brown. Here. Chairman Howland.
Here.
Mr. Lightfoot. Here. Mr. Michike. Here. Mr. Rocco. Here. Mr. Shepard is excused. Mr. Zal. Here.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who is not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the October 25th, 2016 minutes of the Transportation Committee before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. I would like to introduce Robert Franklin, Chief Financial Officer of Monroe County, who is here to present the 2017 proposed Monroe County budget as it pertains to the Transportation Committee. We will have a question and answer period following the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you the 2017 budget as it pertains to the Transportation Committee. Before we dive into specifics, I'd like to start with a broad overview of Monroe County's budget heading into 2017. Going into 2017, Monroe County is looking to increase its overall spending by about $10 million. That's just under 1% increase compared to the budget year 2016. Very broad numbers. It's a $1.2 billion budget this year. It was the same last year. In this particular slide, you may notice a little difference in presentation compared to prior years. I would like to highlight the third line is labeled debt service. It's really debt service / cash capital. Just couldn't fit all that language in without throwing off the size of the chart. So forgive that omission. The reason I want to highlight this is a change in how we're categorizing our cash capital contributions. In prior years, any cash capital contribution would have been categorized either as a mandated or non-mandated expense, depending on what department or division was budgeting that expenditure. Instead, we've taken an opportunity primarily associated with the dissolution of our local development corporations to move that into a line combining debt service and cash capital. Primarily, we did not want the calculation needed for the Taxpayer Protection Act to be adversely affected by good, sound, strategic financial planning, which I would suggest to you cash capital contributions represents. That would alleviate the need for this governing body to bond for such improvements in the future. This overall budget will comply with New York State's tax cap for 2017. It will comply with Monroe County's local law, Taxpayer Protection Act of 2007. Specific to this committee, our Department of Transportation, a modest change from the amended budget of 2016. I do present to you the division level appropriations as they appear in the budget book. For those of you who were here last year, or for those new legislators who may have perused the 2016 budget book, these divisions presented here are a little different from how they were presented in 2016. Frankly, DOT began reorganizing itself back in 2015. They started moving some staff positions between divisions, and they did that in the latter part of 2015 for that year and for the 2016 budget presentation. It's completing its reorganization now for the 2017 budget by shifting a couple functions between divisions as well. So the changes presented here on this slide for 2017 include renaming what last year was called the Road Maintenance Division, and now it is named the Traffic Operations and Permits Division. So this division no longer includes the function of road maintenance. We all think of like road milling and resurfacing. That particular function, road maintenance, is now managed within the newly renamed Highway Engineering and Operations. Conversely, this Highway Engineering and Operations Division last year included a permit review and inspection program for all developments that bordered a county road. That particular inspection and permit function is now managed within Traffic Operations and Permits. Just a few highlights for the DOT budget in 2017, initiating the design of 2 major expressway lighting system upgrades. These are major expressway lighting upgrades. These are, I think there's 5 in all major upgrades to the conduit and wiring. If you're on 490 or 390 and you notice the expressway lights are out, probably, it could be the bulbs out, don't get me wrong, but probably the problem is the wiring and the conduit. So there are 5 major capital projects to redo all the expressway lighting. They're going to complete their construction of the RTOC building that's over on Scottsville Road, the Regional Traffic Operations Center, and completing the highway ceiling resurfacing, rehab, and reconstruction of about 192 lane miles of county highways. For those of you who may not know, Monroe County provides some funding to the local bus company, RGRTA. This is pursuant to state law. Counties must match state funding on a formula basis. For 2017, the county's contribution to RGRTA will be consistent with the 2016 contribution. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the presentation, but we'd be happy to field questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I will now open the floor to any committee members who have questions regarding the transportation portion of the budget. Mr. Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think I did hear you say that we can ask questions regarding the budget, or wasn't?
Yes,
Thank you.
the transportation budget for this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the administration, thank you so much for all of the work that you've done so far. And I do have a few questions related to the budget and the transportation department. I hear you mentioned, I heard you mention in your presentation near the end, that's why I kind of got lost, because I was trying to read that last slide and I didn't quite get it all. I think I did hear that we are doing some major upgrades to our highway system, 490, and I see here that there's just 2 major expressway lighting upgrades. So some of the question is, I see that the budget on page 583 tells me that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, that the budget item is for $788,000, $788,900, which is just a little bit more spent than in 2015. So it seems that we have done some upgrades, if I'm speaking the right thing here, and will our upgrades include new LED fixtures? And if so, is that saving us money? Can you speak along some of those lines as it relates to our budget through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, please?
Mr. Chairman, referencing page 583, the line for electricity, $788,900. Monroe County participates in an energy aggregation group with other local municipalities within the county. And this is really our use of electricity as projected by our energy aggregation consultant, Fluent. So these are based on our electricity utilization and where the market trends are going. Do have Mr. Tim Freeler here from DOT. While I have some knowledge of the lighting projects, he could describe them in a little more detail since you referenced them in your question.
Thank you.
This, through the chair, yes, we do have, these are capital projects. They would not be reflected in the operating budget as you see it. There are 4 lighting projects that have been included in our capital program, 2 of which have been advanced and we selected consultants, and we are in the process of getting those contracts going. Those contracts will involve upgrade of the highway lighting on the interstates. That will involve both conduit work, foundation work, upgrade with LEDs as you suggested for lighting efficiencies and more reliability, and that will be tackled through consultants through our capital funds over the next several years.
Thank you so much. Do we have, through you, Mr. Chairman, do we have any idea of what the payback period is for LED fixtures? I mean, how much, through you, Mr. Chairman, are the LED fixtures a major investment for the County of Monroe? And if so, do we see it paying us back over a certain amount of time? In your thought or analysis, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration.
Through Mr. Chairman, in answer to the question, yes, the project will address mainly the conduit and wiring reliability, all the stuff that you don't see. The upgrade of the fixtures themselves to provide the lighting levels of desired LEDs are certainly newer technology and will save on electricity, the payback of which can only be determined by the scope of how many are installed as each of these contracts allows. But the focus of it is more on the reliability and repairability of those systems.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I think I understand for that. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, tell me, are we adequately funding our highway maintenance work, or is it more that we need to do? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration.
At the current time, yes, our road highway system, and I'll speak primarily to our roads, have seen an increase in our pavement conditions. That's been the result of both CHIPS funding that we've received from the state,
right,
both an increase last year and as you'll see in the budget moving forward. Also the result of multiple highway preventive maintenance contracts, some of which you've seen come through the legislature for approval. Preventive maintenance 1 and 2 have been completed the last couple of years, as well as 3 and 4 are out to bid and going to be awarded next year. So that, along with other stimulus work, we've really done a lot of milling and paving throughout the county, which has been a big boost to our road conditions overall and has helped our maintenance funding to the point where we can do some other things that we may not have been able to do in the past.
All right, thank you so much. I made a note here through you, Mr. Chairman, just a couple more questions. On page 329 and 330, we have some scheduling fees. I'm trying to bring it up, Mr. Chairman. That's all on my thing here. When was this, through you, through the chair, to the administration? When was the last time we reviewed and or increased our fee schedules?
Mr. Chairman, all of these fees are actually reviewed on an annual basis at budget time. In discussions right here at the table, we believe the last time any of the particular fees were changed was 2015.
Okay. I'll take that, no problem. Not a problem. Finally, one last question, and I think that you already answered most of this. Back to the highway, with the upgrades to the conduit and foundations and so forth on the things that we do not see. However, you know, there are some things that we would like to see, which would be maybe the road with a great LED, as a joke, okay, with some LED light or fixtures. It says here on page 337, and I was just trying to bring it up, that last year percentage of light fixtures were working was only 79%, and our goals for 2015 and 16 are 85%. So does this mean that on any given day, on average, 15% of our lights are out? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration. If you know, we all trying to get it up on our little laptops. So.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, certainly our goal is to have at least 85% of those lights working at all times. But I will tell you that due to the late winter that we had last year and our considerable repair efforts, we have achieved right now, based on the latest evaluation of how many we're at 97% of the lights are on. We have 3% out.
3% out. Oh, okay.
Which changes on a daily basis, certainly. Sure.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to that briefly, Department of Transportation actually took back responsibility for maintaining expressway lighting 2 years ago, and we put in the operating budget at that time an additional $200,000 for those necessary contractual services to get the lights back on.
Thank you so much. I have no further budgeting questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Legislator Lightfoot. Are there any further questions? Legislator Brown.
Mr. Chair, page 579, under vehicle parts, this allocation is increasing by 150%. What vehicle parts are being purchased for that amount?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the increase in that is largely upgrades to our striping equipment. We purchased a new striper, but some of the support equipment related to that, cone trucks and the like, are scheduled for replacement at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, are there any further questions? Legislator Rocco?
On page 581, I noticed there's quite an increase in construction supplies, almost $500,000. Is this for, can you explain that?
Chairman, that budgeted increase is really all related to road maintenance and CHIPS supplies. CHIPS is the state-sponsored road maintenance program.
And before, that wasn't in this particular portion, correct? To the chair?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you please repeat the question?
was this under the Highway Engineering and Operations Division prior to this, or was it under the Maintenance Division?
Mr. Chairman, in prior years, that would have been under road maintenance. And I would point out that even though you're seeing a significant increase in this particular line, you will see roughly a corresponding decrease in the supply and materials line.
Thank you.
Construction expense line, or commercial.
Any
Commercial
further
services.
questions? Legislator Lightfoot?
Yes, thank you. Just two more. I missed them at the bottom of the page. Thank you once again for all your wonderful work and the administration doing such a wonderful job and answering the questions with confidence. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, just two questions concerning the budget. One of the concerns that I have, and I've seen in other parts of the community, are some of the aging signs that we have. The parking, parking 490 entrance ramps, whether you're heading east or west. Sometimes if you're not from here, you may not even know where it's leading you. I can see you definitely as a driver, being frustrated. And I would like to know, as it relates to budget, do we have anything in this budget that's going to allow us to take a more of an aggressive approach in replacing and or updating street signs that are faded? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, or is this the first you heard of? It's okay. I'm just asking.
Mr. Chairman, we'll tag team this answer if you don't mind.
Yes.
Our traffic operations and permits program has sign fabrication and installation section that handles new signage on county roads and roads within the city. They also have a capital project in the CIP for the retro reflectivity project, which is changing all the street name signs. But again, just our focus is on county roads. Mr. Freeler?
So, I'm sorry, just before you go, well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I will expand a little bit. Yes, related to county roads as well as the city of Rochester, the focus has been on advisory signs and warning signs, and we've completed the upgrades to those, and now our focus is on the street name signs to get them in compliance with current standards, which is the upper and lowercase letters, bigger sign faces to accommodate visual needs for the current standards. So you're going to see a big movement in upgrades of street name signs throughout the county on county roads as well as in the city of Rochester.
Thank you. So, and I don't want to deviate too further from the budget question, but through you, Mr. Chairman, the advisory signs, I'm assuming, I'm just talking in the city now at this particular point. Advisory signs are like signs that tell you where to park, or is that something along that lines? And then are we saying that is complete at this time, or there's still an ongoing process, or am I missing it? And if I'm missing it, you can just tell me.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the advisory signs that I referred to, I was referring to speed limits, curve warning signs, and the like. Parking signs are also part of that activity, but those are reimbursed through the city of Rochester due to many of the pavement changes that they make that didn't impact the parking signs.
Okay, so that wouldn't be necessarily reflected, through you, Mr. Chairman, in our budget, and that was something that is an intergovernmental type relationship. I'm taking it as that. This is fine. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just clarify that last comment, that could very well be reflected on our budget. If the city would like to increase its spending on its own road signs, we're more than happy to budget appropriately.
Okay, thank you. And finally, finally this time, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, are there any vacant positions in this particular department reflected in this year's budget?
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, is the question, are there vacancies within this department at this time?
Well, are they being projected, through you, Mr. Chairman, are they being proposed in the 2017 budget? So are there vacant positions being proposed? Does this 2017 budget reflect vacant positions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. There are today vacancies within the department, but the 2017 budget has sufficient financial resources to cover filling those vacancies.
And so, through you, finally, Mr. Chairman, do we anticipate filling those positions in 2017?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, we are actively filling all those vacancies. We have had some difficulties, to be quite honest, in our highway maintenance area, filling those laborer positions. They tend to have some high turnover, and some of our technical and our traffic operations is at a vacancy, which we have reached out as far as we can to get as many applications to increase that pool, and we're working actively on a daily basis to fill those.
Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to ask the questions and being patient. Thank you so much. Thank you to the administration for their completeness in answering the questions, and to you, Mr. Chairman, for your patience as well.
Well, thank you, Legislator Lightfoot, for your questions, and if Legislator Zal.
Thank you. On page 581, under Highway Engineering Operations Division, the department is budgeting $280,000 less in 2017. I'm curious, through the chair, what do these commercial services usually entail? Again, page 581, through the chair.
Mr. Chairman, the 2016 amended budget, just to clarify for this group, the 2016 amended budget does have additional CHIPS money that this legislature approved the acceptance of earlier this year. The entirety of that CHIPS funding is not completely reflected in the 2017 budget, so you will see some variation in that regard. I believe there's just over $380,000 already reflected in CHIPS funding, so that's far different than the 2016 amended. This particular line would have, in addition to those CHIPS services, tree and stump removals, and any other contracts we will fund through the municipalities for like curb sweeping, etc.
So, through the chair, this is covered through other avenues. Is that what you're saying, through the chair?
Mr. Chairman, primarily through New York State's CHIPS program.
Thank you.
Are there, Legislator Rocco?
Chair, I know that your 2017 objectives were to do 192 lane miles of resurfacing and rehabilitation. Twofold question: how many county lane miles do we have? And in 2016, roughly how much lane miles did you rehabilitate?
Through the chair, we have the county road system, county lane miles. We have approximately 1,490. Just to share it, under 1,500. The number that you see reflects both the resurfacing efforts that we do as part of the CHIPS operating, as well as our capital program with these preventive maintenance contracts that have gone through federal funding. That's a good chunk of the milling and paving as well. In 2016, I believe, bear with me, we have those numbers. Oh, is it? Through you, Mr. Chair, we did 168 lane miles in 2016. The increase in 2017 that you see as a result, next year we're going to have 2 preventive maintenance contracts that are going to go out in the same construction year. This year we had 1.
Thank you.
Anyone else? being no further questions, we'll move on to the agenda, new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 16-0333.
Moved by Legislator Michike, seconded by Legislator Zale. Is there any discussion? Legislator Lightfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you to the administration regarding referral 16-0333, what is the criteria to become eligible to be listed on the official county highway map? And through you, Mr. Chairman, in the same note, is there a benefit? I see that it's only adding maybe 2.7 miles. Let me bring it up, but that is my question. Is there any criteria to become eligible to be added to the county maps as part of that? And what is there a benefit for it? Through you, Mr. Chairman. I see here, Mr. Chairman, that it's in a geographic or geospatial format. I see that the GIS has some type of. I just kind of want to know what it means, Mr. Chairman. All what it entails.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the county map additions that are included in this were part of a geospatial project encountered by the state DOT. And they alerted us that said there are some roads that appear to provide connectivity. They are able to be driven on by the traveling public, not gated off in the evenings. Particularly, you'll see these are largely in park areas where they were considered park-type roads. And if these were in fact included on our map, they would be added to our lane miles and included in our calculations for future CHIPS payments, future CHIPS appropriations, and could be included, and we would work with the Parks Department to do maintenance on those as well as a result of getting the additional money.
Sure. So you, Mr. Chairman, these I wasn't aware that most of these were all county park roads, as connectivities through the park. I just saw them as just street names. So I'll take that. There's not a lot of distance in between the length of each road, and so I think in the most, one of them is 1 mile, but I buy it. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? Legislator Zale.
Through the chair, which municipalities currently own these roads?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, these roads are currently owned by Monroe County under the Parks Department. This provides legislation to get them on the county map so that they would be eligible for the funding as I described previously.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Legislator Brown.
How often does New York State Department of Transportation update this map?
Through the chair, this is the first effort as part of a federal mandate that they have, is to get the entire entire New York State road system in a geospatial coordinate system. So this is the first time that I'm aware of that they've embarked on this at every street level for every municipality in New York State.
Wow.
It's big.
Okay, thank you.
I might add that having worked with roads for 30 years, it's the first time I've ever seen it also. Any further questions? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The referral passes. Madam Clerk?
Referral 16-0335.
Moved by Legislator Zale, seconded by Legislator Brown. Is there any discussion? Legislator Lightfoot.
This will be my last question.
Promise?
So, on the referral 16-0335, there are some acquisitions to put up our street lighting here taking place. I'm not 100% sure after reading, and you can definitely clarify to me, are we offering to purchase the site, the land acquisition, or is this something that we are going to take? I think it says here a $1 amount. Can you just please, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the administration, just interpret this referral for me, please, in layman's term?
Through the chair, this is a traffic signal. It's a private traffic signal. So in order to be able to go in and maintain the traffic signal equipment, the owner that's benefiting from the traffic signal will donate the easement so that we're able to go in and maintain it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? There being none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Referral passes. Madam Clerk?
Referral 16-0336. Authorize an acquisition of interest in real property.
Moved by Legislator Brown, seconded by Legislator Rocco. Is there any discussion? There being none, proceed to vote. All those in favor by saying aye. Opposed? Referral passes. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? The November 29th, 2016 meeting of the Transportation Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Transportation Committee is scheduled for Tuesday, December 20th, 2016 at 5:15 p.m.